still incredibly challenging to accept that you can't just replace ideology with reason. I'm like you in that I would like everything to fit into a semblance of logic. And sometimes the, theist versus atheist or agnostic dichotomy is made out into this thing where it's like, yeah, now I'm on the good side where I only accept reason and science. Yeah. And that doesn't answer everything either. Yeah. So like another way I could approach your what's the value question is to say, like, what is it that I fundamentally accept simply because it seems it feels right. I think everybody has some of those that are just so integral to who they are that they have to accept them. And for me, it's that there's some guiding principle in each of us that, whether or not it's a truly common trait, because I don't know if anything can be marked objective in the sense that we all have the exact same instinct, except that we all possess consciousness and we all seem to be steered towards survival. So now, can you say then that morality is what helps us survive? And what does it even mean for us to survive? But I take a step back and just say there's something then that we're all navigating towards, and without putting it into a box or into these imperfect words, that for there to be any logic behind an individual morality or belief system, there must be something objective, even if we can't truncate it into a morality.
All right, let me word jumble back at you. And
yeah, sorry, I just spit a lot.
No, it's good. That's exactly how I like to function. And then we kind of see where throw all the spaghetti against the wall.
Yeah, it takes a lot from that.
So let me do the same. Like you said something that resonates with me. Like I think we're looking for objectivity. We're trying to find some big T truth in this, right? That's what ideology, that's what religion in many ways, it's why it's so compelling. I think for a lot of people, whether it's true or not, right? That's a different debate. But for a lot of people, the idea of there being some objective truth, some objective guiding light that we can say, okay, I don't have to bear this burden of figuring it out. I can just rely on this and take it. We're compelled to that. We seem to want that. If you look at that, and I say, okay, what can I say with any confidence or conviction that actually is an objective truth, is something that I can anchor on? To me, it's kind of what you were touching on, like this idea of some form of goodness. Now, take goodness to mean whatever you want, right? For each person, it's different. Don't even say morality. Just put it at the most generic form of goodness. Like, we want to feel good. Yeah. For some of us, feeling good is helping other people. It's going to church. For some people, it's having sex, doing drugs. There's all different types of things, and we can debate the levels of goodness. But the overarching concept is the thing that we are compelled towards. We want goodness in our lives, and to me, that's the most objective thing I could anchor around. Is that it's just that individual feeling of it. And then it begs the question, like you started to ask, of, okay, where does morality fit into this? Is that meant to help us figure out what are the actual good things we should be pulled towards? Is that something else that's actually meant to negate that drive towards goodness? Because if we just let each person go after their individual thing that drives them toward goodness, that doesn't work and there's anarchy. So we need a morality to say this is what's acceptable to be good. That's what I find myself struggling with so much. And I'll tell you, like, as I come around on that circle, I guess I'm probably an atheist, and if I had to say right now, but I can understand religion. I can understand why people come to that, because these questions are really hard and we are trying to make sense of it. So let me kind of volley that back at you and see what that does for you, where you go with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly it. A lot of people, I think, try to simplify that. They say, well, rather than making this a whole belief system with its own code of ethics and all that, let's just reduce it, like Google does on a corporate level. Don't be evil. Don't be a dick, right? It's just like, well, that's easy enough, but it's not, because there's not as much shared agreement as that presumes. So when I say what's the common trait, and like you put it in terms of pleasure and pain, like that's clearly a key component, but it's also not as simple as what brings the most pleasure, how do we reduce the most pain? There's some subset of values within that because at the end of the day, we're all still going to be finite. The idea of deriving purpose from prolonging life or minimizing suffering, it's like, it's clearly something we're drawing towards, but it's not an end game. So we're going to sit here and be philosophical and keep reframing it as a question with the ultimate realization that no, we don't, obviously we don't have the answer, but those are the questions that everyone needs to ask and figure out what's, I guess, resonant enough would be the word, that you're like, okay, if we're all different in these ways and there's something here that I cannot refute within myself, I'm drawing towards maybe more than other people are, then, to use kind of a Christian phrase, like that's my calling. um it becomes very tricky when you're weighing, moral dilemmas of, well, what would be better, this or that. But I think accepting the responsibility for, ultimately I just have to make a decision that feels right. It can create like a sense of nihilism and
Mhm.
absurdity, but I I find it, at least what I can say is that it's more valuable to admit that that's what it is
Right.
than to place it under a set of guidelines. Not that guidelines aren't valuable for, social utilitarian purposes, maybe. Um, that's but that structure is of survival and getting along and operating systems is a very different thing from what's the ultimate purpose.
Yes.